Thank you for coming to watch Dr. Smith's video today. We encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the alert button. That way you can get notifications when he uploads a new video. Thank you for coming today.
So we hope you take the time to hear and think about it. And if you have a book, read in the book about the concept and the topics that we talk about. They have a lasting effect. The intent is not necessarily to treat pain, but to make permanent, long-term correction with your whole family and your friends.
Thank you. Make sure you subscribe and hit the alert button. Have a good day.
Have a good day. So we're going to start by handing out the handout. Take one and pass it around. This is called a profile review. I'm going to use a different approach today for the profile class than I did last time I did the class. While we're passing that out, I want to talk to you about the second topic on the program, and that is clearing negative energy of draining thoughts. This is totally different than the profile, but it's very helpful to many people. So I would like to have you think of the picture of the triangle on page 27. At the top of the triangle is mental, emotional, spiritual. At the peak of the triangle is the spirit. You have the brain and the emotion on the same part of the triangle. Many times we have life experiences that are negative. It can be an event, it can be a person, it can be a perception, a feeling, but every time you think about it, it drains you some. We'll call it a loop, a negative loop between the brain and your emotional part. Functionally, it works the same as if you leave your car door open after you brought the groceries in. The car door stays open all night. The dome lights are on, not draining much power, but draining power. And it's a weekend, and you don't go out for a couple of days, and then you go out and the lights are dim, you go to start your car, it doesn't come on. Negative thoughts make these negative loops. The negative energy drains your body of energy that could have been used to repair heart, hip, lung, eye, kidney, whatever the body needs to repair. We talk about the stem cells, and they become whatever they need to become. When you have negative draining loops, stem cells have to go to fix little things in the body rather than the important ones. So what do? I do a procedure called clearing. It works very effectively. What I do is have the patient lay down. I test them to see if they're testable by asking them to tell me their name. And then I do a reflex test by holding their feet. They tell me their name, and then I have them lie to me. I tell them, say I am Mary Brown, and the body will flinch unless they're a very good liar. If they're a very good liar, then I can't test them. If they flinch, then I know if they think a thought that's negative, their body will respond. So then I have them think of, again, I call it an issue. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's suppose you had a family member that was always ragging on you. Every time you're around them, they don't treat you properly. They say things behind your back, they say things to you. So, and that person's name is Bill. So when you think of Bill, your body doesn't like that. So if Bill were issue number one, then I would say to you, think of issue number one. If it were Bill and there was a negative reaction, you would flinch. Then I know you have a loop. Now, I will tell you this. I personally never want to know what the issue is. All I want to know is that you know what the issue is and that you have a number attached. So usually I will say to you, if you're going to want to have a clearing, come with about 3 or 4 issues, have them numbered. So Bill is number 1. The day you got the letter from the IRS was number 2. The day you heard that your son was getting a divorce, that event, that phone call, number 3, whatever the issue may be. It could be an abuse, that's very common in families. It could be a car accident, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's easy to check. Sometimes you don't think it's an issue, and it is. Sometimes you may think it is an issue, and it isn't. I always trust the body. So if I say, think of issue number 1, we test, not an issue. Number 2, you think it's an issue, but your body is okay with it. So we'll go on. I try to find 1 or 2 that cause you to react the most. Now we have it identified. Then I come around to you're laying on your back on the test table. I put my fingers on the back base of your head on what's called polarity points. I touch them with my fingers. I hold them to sense the energy that flows through your body. Then I have you think of the issue. Let's say issue number 1 tested positive. I say think of issue number 1 over and over and over again, like your little 2-year-old kid holding up a sign. Yeah, Bill, 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 Bill. I'm serious, it's Bill. That's the issue. So you think about it slowly over and over again. Now, here's the hard part. The hard part is we have to create a new stress to you right then that your body perceives to be a greater threat to you than the memory that's in that negative loop. And the way we do it is have you take a deep breath. So you're doing 2 things. You're holding your breath and you're thinking of issue number whatever. And then I say, don't breathe. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait. And your brain's like, thinking of Bill. No, I think I need to breathe. No, I'm thinking of Bill. No, we really need to breathe. Thinking, so your brain's kind of going back and forth on what's important. The challenge is for you to hold your breath long enough that the brain says, let go, Bill. And then I tell you to breathe. So what I feel for on the head are pulses. I can tell when the energy you start to clear. I'll see you're doing good. You're getting close. And finally, I'll feel a pulse on both positive and negative at the same time. And that's when I know that your brain let the issue go. Then I go back to the feet and we retest it. So I will say it to you again. think of issue number one. Now it doesn't react. What does that mean? That means that issue is gone. The issues are electrical. They're like, it's energy. And it's like cutting the wire that was connecting the thought mentally to the emotion. That issue then will never return. It can't return. So the next time you're around Bill, you're okay with Bill because he's not bothering you anymore. He's still a jerk, but but you don't care because you let the issue go. If it's an event, you were abused and everything you think of abuse, then you don't have that issue. And it could be that Bill abused you. So you might have two things. You may have Bill and the abuse. Bill may have had you may have been in an alley or in a park or somewhere. And when you think of that negative thing, you think of that area. So sometimes you can have issues that have what I call tentacles. They are related to the main issue. You had a question?
You answered it.
No? You do?
Yeah, I just wondered what happens when you see Bill again, but you covered
okay.
that. So
You're okay with Bill.
even if he treats you crappy again, huh?
To you now have learned that Bill, you're more important than him, and you're more important than what he does or says. I could tell you many experiences I've had. I'll tell you one. I had a mom that came to see me. Mom is in her 90s. She had two daughters that took care of her off and on. They put her in a care center. They didn't like each other, and they didn't like to take care of the burden of taking care of mom. So whenever they thought about mom, it stressed them. So I recommended that we do a clearing on them. And they obviously thought one of their issues, they told me later, one of their issues was mom. Well, about a month later, I said, so how's your mom? And the one lady said, oh, she's doing great. She's changed. I thought, good. Success. Okay? So you still have the mental imprint, but not the loop. That's the issue. It's the loops that drain the energy. So what can you learn from that? We're going to talk about that right now in the profile. So let's go to the profile sheet. Now, you have the profile review sheet. That's a model, I'll call it a biomechanical model of a healthy person. By divine design, this is neutral, this is healthy. I personally believe that if I could take a picture of your spirit, it would look like that, biomechanically. So we could put dots, draw lines, draw angles, and this is, again, the image of God in a neutral, healthy state. The problem is when you come and get bodies and start to grow up, we develop different patterns that deviate from the pattern of the spirit. We have two main factors. One is called the conscious, that's present time happenings. That's like a ping pong ball that can only be one place at a time. It can bounce around. That's a conscious mind. In practice, if I had my old practice, I would take an x-ray of you standing from the side and from the front, and I could look at that, your body mechanics, and know how you were with your mental, emotional patterns. Right? The goal is to get the conscious and the subconscious and the spirit all the same. I remember when you were young, they had encyclopedias, you know, they fell open to the body, and you could lay one down, lay another. So that's what we laid. The spirit, that's the main one. We had the conscious and the subconscious. We wanted to be the same, not deviated. But as life goes on, we get skewed. I said skewed, not screwed. Skewed. We get bent out of shape. Some of that is by choice. Some of it is by default. Some of it by force from our society. So let's first go through from top to bottom, and I would like to relate to you what the significance is. So when we look at the body from the side, at the very top it says A25, 025P. Those are millimeters. That means when you stand looking from the side, your head should be within 25 millimeters. That's 1 inch forward or back from the center. The idea is to be neutral. Neutral. Another word is balanced. Balanced. When you're more balanced, you have more ease and you have more power. The head should be level. When I was growing up, my dad would talk about one of our neighbors, and he would say he's a very level-headed guy. I didn't know what that meant until I understood this. It means he's got his head on straight. He's not snooty. My mom would talk about her snooty neighbors that kept their nose up a little bit. And she would say that, act like they're in deep water. The occiput relates to the brain. That's the bottom bone in the head. That's the blue bone that I show you on the model. The base of the brain. The brain spinal cord goes through the bottom. The next segment is the atlas vertebra. The atlas vertebra is like two hands that hold the head. The atlas and the occiput should coincide with each other. There should be motion between the two. They should slide and glide. Many times they don't. They don't because of bad posture. They don't because sometimes if you follow the words over to the right, sometimes you think more than you feel. You use your brain more than your heart. They need to be floating and aligned with each other. Now, as we go down the spine, we have the neck, and then we have the T1. T means thoracic. That's where the ribs start. The T1 angle on a healthy person, if we draw a line on the x-ray, is 25 degrees. That starts, that's right here, the base of the neck. That's where the first rib attaches. It should be that's a normal, neutral, healthy angle. If it goes too high, it's because of faulty posture or faulty thinking. The faulty thinking can include, this is very common in women, you can have negative thoughts about yourself. You've heard of the word dowager's hump. Dowager's hump is a problem that females get, right in the upper part of the back that goes too far forward. Hunch, upper back hunches, that's too high. If it goes too low, it's because they are suppressing things that they need to deal with. So it can be low and flat. Yeah, be very flat back in there. When I was got my first suit, they had to tailor it because I was too flat right there. They had to take it in because I was not doing things I needed to do. I was suppressing facts, and that affected my spine. I didn't know that then, but it was affecting my spine.
So if it's affecting your, like that suppressing, that means it's
Too flat.
too flat. Okay.
So
Things that you should do.
that's one of the things that you could feel bad about yourself for. So is it gonna give the hump or flatten the hump? I mean, if you don't do the things.
It can be both. Now, that's a good, let me comment on that. You have a conscious pattern and you have a subconscious pattern.
Mhm.
So when I would do a full examination, I would do X-ray standing and X-ray sitting. You can have both patterns. You can sit down and subconscious mind says, I don't like but the fact that it suppressed things. And consciously the brain says, you should be doing this stuff. So you can have two patterns. Again, the goal is to have conscious and subconscious the same, neutral.
So you talked about conscious, subconscious, and you also talked about spirit. And we can see things in conscious in the standing position, subconscious in the sitting or laying position. What about the spirit?
Spirit's always the same.
Okay, so
It's trapped.
Right.
Your spirit is trapped now inside of you.
right, it's embodied, right? I mean, it's
You're not gonna break the spirit. You may break you,
right.
but not it.
So this okay. I was just wondering if there's a correlation in.
There's a correlation, but I have no way of taking a picture of your spirit.
Right. No, I just meant if somebody has a spiritual struggle or a spiritual issue going on, if you're able to see
It was always manifest physically.
right.
So
Okay.
what we see when we look at the outer body, it's a manifestation of what's going on inside.
Right.
So when I take a picture of you walking down the hall, when I take a picture of you standing, and I look at that, I can tell right away
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, conflict inside.
Okay.
That's not in harmony with who you really
There
are.
we are. Right.
Okay.
So the Dowager's hump means you're flat now?
The Dowager's hump is when you are excessively judgmental about yourself.
Oh, okay.
Now, how do you fix that? When you ask about that, let me tell you how to fix it. I use what I did yesterday. You make a list of negative things you don't like about you on the left side of the page. Yesterday I had a lady early in the morning and she has a Dowager's hump quite developed and she wants to know how to fix it. I told her to make a list. I sort of felt it. I said, I don't have x-rays, I don't know for sure, but I can feel, I think you have about 13 things. I would recommend you make a list of 13 things you don't like about yourself. That's number one. Then you draw a line and you make another list by taking the things on this side that you don't like about you. You put on this side, this is the to-do list, to do, to change, to modify, to release, whatever you need to do, so that you become more friendly with you. And you take the one that appears to be the easiest thing to do, and it becomes number one. For example, she's a redhead. She'd rather be a blonde. We can fix that tomorrow. Now, she has been married for 27 years and realized over and over again, that she made a mistake. Well, that now becomes number 13. She's going to stay with them. She can't fix that one. So it goes to the hardest thing to deal with. Okay? So easy to hard. And then you start at the top. When you fix it, you mark it off, and you go to number 2. You don't try to fix them all. You look at them all occasionally, because some of them will automatically go away because you are saying the statement, I am getting better and better every day in every way. And sometimes some of those things that used to really bug you don't. You don't know why. You just don't. Why? Because you're a better person. When you become a better person, you become stronger. You become more neutral. You become less judgmental. You become more tolerant. You become more resilient, like an elastic. You can stretch more, but you also have more power to pull you back to center. And center is where we want to be. Non-judgmental, neutral, and just be who you are. So going on down, we get down to the thoracic apex. That's the curve in the middle of the back where the ribs are. There's a normal design for that curve. If it's too rounded, that means the person is resisting being who they are. Or if it's too flat, then that's an indication that they have an abusive pattern. You can have an abusive pattern on both sides of the sharp sword. You can be doing bad things that hurt you, or you can be doing too much good things, and it's hurting you because you're exceeding your current tissue tolerance. And that's very common with people who are now over the hill, and they want to be back down here where they used to be instead of over here. So it's hard for them to slow down. So they abuse themselves by doing too much. They ignore the concept of staying within tissue tolerance. Now going on down to 212, T12 is also 25 degrees, but it goes the other way. It's 25 degrees, but now it's the other way because it's the bottom of the curve. If it's too high, more than 25, that's an indication that a person is hiding feelings. A lot of good people hide feelings, both negative feelings and positive feelings. And it shows on the body, why that part of the body having too much of the angle. So instead of saying to your spouse nice things, you just don't say it because you don't think it's going to be received the way you want it to. Because last time you said something nice or did something nice, it backfired. Like, what do you want? What are you after? Or they say something even worse, like, you don't really believe that, do you? And Anne says, well, yes, I really do. Yeah, I think the way you treat me is not good. But if every time I say something about it, it backfires. So I just hide my feelings. That makes you sick. So if you're young, with help you learn how to express both negative feelings and positive feelings, okay? And be okay with that. I remember we had a gospel doctrine teacher in Colorado Springs, Mark McConkie. He was Bruce R. McConkie's son. He was a very good man. He was a tremendous teacher. And he would be teaching and somebody would raise a hand like they do in Sunday school and come up with some off the wall, well, I think, and I'm going on and on and on. And he would be respectful, and when they were finished, he'd say, I heard you, I understand what you said, but you're wrong. And go on. I'd go on with the lesson.
Oh, wow.
And some people said, oh, wow. But, you know, it wasn't the time or place to have a combat. He just went on with it.
Quick question. I, in the last year, have seen several clients where either the 6th or 7th rib is kind of doing this thing. And I've wondered about what's going on with the 6th or 7th. I mean, like emotionally or mentally, what's going on at that point, because it's right there, either 6 or 7, and there's several people.
Let me explain to you.
Yeah.
T6 and T7 is at the apex of the thoracic curve.
Okay.
At the apex. If there's a conflict there, then there's a conflict with them and their identity. They're either avoiding being who they really are, or they're abusive. They're either holding back, or they're doing too much. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard spot. They're not sure. They're not sure where they're going. And so then you look at the T1 to see if it's a brain problem,
Okay.
or the T12 to see if it's an emotional feeling problem.
Okay. Thank you.
So now, from a practical standpoint of our discussion, so what? So what about this stuff? Do I need to know all this stuff? No. What you need to know is it's more healthy to just be who you are, to be totally honest and be totally neutral. And when you get inspiration to do things, you do it. Or you don't do it when you get inspiration to stop. You be true to yourself. Now the lumbar curve, that's the low back. Should have a nice smooth curve with a 25 degree at the top and a 45 to 50 at the bottom. That has to do with how you're handling anger. Anger you should be neutral. Obviously, I recommend that you make the decision not to get angry. People say, you make me angry. Well, no, you don't. People don't make you angry. You let them anger you. So make a decision. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to, I'm neutral. You can think or do like President McConkie. You can think whatever you want. I'm not going to be judged by you because you're wrong. That's not me. So you don't allow yourself to be angry. You stay neutral. At the bottom is the sacral angle. By divine design, the sacrum, that's this bone right there. That's the bones that fit between the hips. That bone holds all the weight of everything above. That's the foundation. Now that foundation should be about 50 degrees. If it's too high, you're over creative. If it's too low, you lose your desire to live. And you can lose your desire to live by having poor posture. If you sit in a soft chair, like people do in the rest homes, the senior centers, they slump down in the chair, they lose their desire to live. If they're too high, they become excessively creative, meaning they become hypersexual. That was a common problem I would see when I would evaluate teenagers. They have high sacral angle. So they'd be doing bad things morally because of that pattern. And that would show up higher up by being abusive, by doing things they shouldn't do. And I would confront them. If they had too low an angle, it'd be flat. I would always ask if they had had thoughts of suicide. And if the angle was, if this was flat or negative, they would always answer yes. Because that was what they had had, and that manifests in the body. It was going down. Now, that next picture is on the, looking at the person from the back. Ideally, you want, by divine design, is centered. But the body can go right or left, a small amount. It's in millimeters, ½ inch, both ways. Typically, for a healthy female, they go right. Typically, for a healthy male, they will go left. Why? Because women are always right.
In their best mind.
That too.
Women, by divine nature, are more emotional, sensitive, caring, loving. If you think about God, that's the mercy side. Men are more logical, brain-driven. That's the justice side of who you are. That also goes down to the bottom. When we look at the pelvis, meaning at the top of the hips, sitting, or the top of the femurs, standing, that should be level. Level means horizontal. That's healthy. That's optimal. That's what maximum ease is. If you have a slight problem, you will go if you start to blame your problem on anything else other than you, I'll give you one more sheet. This shows graphically, looking at the spine, what happens if you become dependent on other people, or you let other people control you. It changes your posture. And the further away from you the responsibility is, the greater the tip of the pelvis. You have enough?
Can you say that one more time?
I'll say it again. If you look on this page, at the bottom of this page, it tells you the same thing that this picture shows. If the one hip goes down, then
Do you have any more of that?
So again, these are in millimeters on the film, on the X-ray. Self or family, if you're female, it's on the right. Or spouse.
You mean that right's the one that is tipping down?
Yes, the right side is low. The further down it goes, the further away from you, personally, it is. It's kind of like this. You are the center, like a bullseye, like a target. If you go to the right, it's a female family member first. But then next, church associate. It's on the bottom of this page. And then society and government than God. People who are not responsible for themselves are more sick. So keep that in mind. If it's going to be, it's up to me. When you start becoming dependent on other people, most of the time, or not much of the time, they will let you down. They will not perform like you wanted or hoped or expected them to. So if you have that attitude, if it's going to be, it's up to me, then you become more and more self-responsible. That's why I like to have people like you who come to class and learn how to take care of yourself and not depend on a pill or a doctor or the government. Right now we have a whole generation that are being trained by the government to have the government be responsible for them. So that we're developing a whole new generation of sickness. It would show up on all of them if we could take a picture of the spine sitting and standing. Okay.
Question.
Yep.
So where does, for example, I learned when I was in college about how, like in particular, girls would pack a younger sibling on one hip and that would involve.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
So-
that's me.
Hear from them like
Yes.
Let's go back there.
So let me comment on that this way. Take one of these if possible. Whether you're carrying a baby on the hip or you had a car accident, the question is, what comes first? The structural stress or the emotional pattern? The correct answer is, it's like having a laying hen. You can have the chicken or the egg. If you have the egg, you're going to get another chicken. So it doesn't matter, they goes both ways. So if a woman, in fact, I saw a lady yesterday with two kids, a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old. And I asked her, do you carry your child on the left hip? Because she's developing a right-sided pattern. And she said yes and told me why. And we talked for a few minutes about how that's affecting her emotionally, what she can do and should do to become neutral. Neutral is the goal.
So you can't, so if a young girl did that a lot when they were young, can you fix that without surgery? I mean, I'm hoping you can.
Let me answer it this way. You can't fix it with surgery.
Okay. Well,
You
'cause-
can't fix it with surgery.
Yeah.
You may be able to slow it down, but you'll never change the pattern.
Okay, so structurally you can adjust that. I mean, you can put it back to normal.
I can't, you can. By divine design, if you act as if you're healthy with all the areas, you'll become aligned consciously and subconsciously with your spirit. If you start soon enough. I give you a true story example. I had a patient who was referred to me for a profile. I used to do this class every month, so people come because of the profile. I didn't know him. That's all he wanted was a profile. He came in the office. I was busy with helping patients, and I said to my X-ray tech, "Go take his pictures. You make the marks. Put him in the office. I'll come in. We put all 4 pictures, 2 standing, 2 sitting. I'm a few bucks. I'll come in and talk to him." So I went in and talked to him. I said, "Take good notes because I'm going to tell you both your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you want to improve, then you go out and you work on, you correct the weaknesses to become strong." He said, "Okay." So we did it. It took about 15 minutes, and he left. I used to send birthday cards. So we sent a birthday card, it came back in the mail, moved, no forwarding address. Gone. About a year later, he walked in the office, walked to the counter and said, "I'd like a re-exam." And they come back and said his name and told me he was back for a re-exam. I said, "Go to it. I'll come and talk to him." I went in, looked at his new films. Totally different guy, totally different pattern. I'd never touched him, other than talk to him. I said, "Wow, what have you been doing?" He unfolded the paper and said, "I've been doing what you told me to do last year." "How do you do?" I said, "Well, you tell me. Those are your pictures." He did phenomenal. What he did was he moved from he lived in Manitou Springs. He moved out of his small social negative influence and went where nobody knew him and became in harmony with his true self. That's all he did. That's how you fix it. And if you are very devoted, you do it more quickly. Okay, let's go through this.
I do have another question.
Okay.
Because this is what happened. I was a student teacher, and we had the opportunity, because we'd done some physical stuff, to check girls' spines.
Yeah.
Even, okay. And I ran into a girl and her spine hurt. I mean, she had a razor back. It was so bad. So, and that was years and years ago. And I've often wondered what happened to her. And I thought I heard she'd had surgeries and stuff. But at that young age, you could, just emotionally, she could have
Corrected.
corrected. Huh?
Yes.
And you still could, even if it wasn't corrected, then you could still do it at 30.
You can always improve. Remember, the body is always making new tissue.
Okay.
If you cease the negative loops, physically, mentally, chemically, emotionally, the body will automatically try to go back to optimal neutral alignment. Now, I've treated people with bad scoliosis that have had rods put in them. I've treated people who have had bad scoliosis and the head is off to the side 4 inches. The goal is not to eliminate the scoliosis. The scoliosis is always an adaptation to either a trauma physically or a trauma emotionally. And girls are very prone to emotional because they're more emotional. And they would try to please mom, they try to please their friends, and then they get, I need to please dad, I need to please my husband, so they get a couple of curvatures. The real success is when we get the head back to the middle. So if the head's in the middle, that's what the body wants. If the head's in the middle, the curves can be there with, and the patient can be mostly healthy, even with curves. And to surgically fuse a curve to prevent it from getting worse, in my opinion, is very evil. Evil. Don't say that too loud.
I understand.
Okay, now, number 1, like a two-edged sword, posture affects personality and personality affects posture. True. 2, posture modifies tension on the brain tissue and modifies its function or the behavior. People who have brain tension have poor behavior. So even children, when a child is always misbehaving, they always have cranial pressure. 3, head forward posture causes one to behave more aggressively. That means they go forward and they accede to shaitanus. True. 4, a flattened lumbar curve indicates internalized anger. As I said earlier, a lot of people get angry and they don't express it. They hold it in. When they hold anger in, they hold the crap in. When you hold crap in, you become constipated. I saw a lady 2 weeks ago who had a bowel movement. She told me about once a week. She had a lot of internalized anger because she didn't want to express her anger. She hadn't learned how to express anger safely. 5, the flattening of the thoracic curve, that's what the reds are, usually is a sign of self-abuse. True. The self-abuse, remember, can be either too much or too much of a good thing, or it can be actually negative. It can be evil abuse. 6, when one leans or lifts to the right, they're trying to be emotional, sensitive, loving. That's true. Leaning to the left allows you to increase logic. Where's the best place to be? In the middle. Now, let me say it this way. If you're in the middle and you're not stuck, then when you need to be logical, you can be, and you get out of it. You need to be emotional, you can be emotional and then go back to neutral. If you need to defend yourself, you can be aggressive. If you need to heal and relax, you can back off, and it's okay. But when you're conscious, you can be neutral. That's the goal, again. I've said it many times. 8, a dowager slump is more common in females. It's related to excessive self-critique. True, very true. 9, increase in the angle of the sacrum has a tendency to increase creativity, sexuality, and expression. That's true. 10, decrease in the sacral angle. Decrease in the angle of the sacrum has a tendency to decrease creativity, even to the point of death wish. And again, I've had people, teenagers, all older people, who had a negative angle with sitting and standing. So both conscious and subconscious, they were in agreement. They did not like life. So when I went asked, if you considered killing yourself, they would say, yeah, I have. And I've had people who have actually killed themselves because they did not correct the problem. 11, it's always best to be balanced, true. 12, the greatest position of power is a relaxed, balanced, neutral spinal column curvature. Now, true. The last 2 statements are by President McKay. Each person is the architect of his own fate. He is fortunate indeed who builds himself with the inspiration of God, realizing that all growth comes from within, not from without. You've heard me say many times, all healing comes from where? Above, down, inside out. You don't heal it with a lotion or a potion or a pill, it comes from within. He also said our true aim is a consciousness of victory over self. That means when you become consciously aware of, I am totally responsible for me. I'll accept all the blame for the bad choices. To feel one's faculties unfolding, the truth expanding the soul is one of life's most sublime experiences. I totally agree with both of those phrases. It's my hope that you will think about what we talked about today and occasionally look at this and look at yourself and ask how am I doing in each of those areas. You can pick the words over here, and you can pick the phrases and the thoughts will help you become normal. Keeping in mind that normal is neutral. You have the greatest power and you have the greatest ease both when you're in neutral. If you go to the book, the good book, it says, judge not. They may not judge. That means yourself included. Just be who you are. And try to be balanced. Mobile and flexible both. But stable in the fact that you're within the normal ranges. Any questions or comments?
You know, like you just said, the judge, or what your general authorities say, the term, do not speak evil of the Lord's anointed.
Yeah.
It's talking about you've been anointed in the temple.
Yes.
You're speaking evil.
Self-talk, negative self-talk. Very destructive. Now, if you have a young person who has faulty posture, you have some kind of friend or a relative, you can be therapeutic to them in the things you say to them. If you understand the posture and what their pattern indicates. A lot of parents lie to the kids by telling them things that are not true. For example, when I was growing up, I was taught over and over again that if you become an Eagle Scout, the whole world will, respect you, and on and on and on and on and on. I became an Eagle Scout when I was 13. Who did it make the greatest difference to?
Your mom.
She was done.
No, me.
That's what it is.
Me. I'm very happy that I did what I did. I'll always be happy that I did that, but it didn't matter to anybody else. If it did, I couldn't tell. Even the same with the, people, we say to missionaries, you go on your mission, it's going to change your life. Well, some of them come back and go inactive because they didn't get it. They didn't get it.
They didn't get it.
They didn't get it.
That reminds me of something I heard one of the chiropractors who used to work at your clinic say. He had graduated the valedictorian of his class at chiropractic college. And he said, you know what they call someone who graduates valedictorian of their class? He said, what? He said, doctor. Just like the one that graduated at the bottom of the class. It makes no difference to anybody else, but I know I did it. It's the same kind of thing.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
So there's an interesting thing that happens, that has happened. I'll be fast. I was going through midwifery and doula training, and they're finding that there was a trend when the pants were lower, that cut, girls, to be more modest as they were sitting in class, literally started to do this, and it was creating a problem with the sacrum, to the point that childbirth was becoming more challenging because they had sat like that, and there was a significant rise in postpartum depression and postpartum suicides.
That's what we just talked
Because
about.
that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Thank you. And that's why I tell you, when you stand on the T-zone, or when you sit, focus on pubis down, rear end up, to keep the foundation optimal. When this changes to abnormal, everything above it has to change to compensate. And compensation is more expensive than normal neutral posture. Thank you.